Well, look at this, my friends. We are back because a big show is back. And that means Casterly Talk is, well, it's been covered in a little bit of dust. It's been covered in dirt and snow, blood and cheese. It's been covered in all of it. And we are back. I'm Ken Napzok. Alden Diaz is going to take us through our cast of players that you see right now. But it is a great day to be talking dragons again, Alden, yeah?
It really is. And I have to say, I'm proud of us. We took a long break, but we can get through our next run and another break and the run after that before Winds of Winter. So we're doing really well.
This is just a countdown to Winds of Winter. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're going to get a release date in 2024.
What even is that?
I believe it.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
Scoop.
The first wow out of the gate was our pal, our co-host, the heart and soul of so much of our knowledge around this spot. That's Rachel. I almost said Rachel Crusher. Levine. That's another time. That is another time. Rachel Crusher Levine is here. Rachel, welcome back to the show.
I'm very excited. As Ken said, I'm always up for talking about dragons, so I am here to do just that.
And Alden, as people could see, we're not alone. Please welcome our guests here.
I really wish I could say I called the banners. Unfortunately, it's not that cool. I just sent some messages. One was for Nikki, and he'll answer any meme. He'll answer anything I send. So Nikki Kumar, of course, one of our great collaborators and friends, works with me over on Octo Radio, Imperial Senate Podcast, Yub Nub Club, screenwriter, historian, life mate. It's all good. But new, we like new here. Nikki's old news. New here. A dear friend, somebody who, if you've paid attention to the most thoughtful and well-worded comments that we've had in Casterly Talk history, they've come from this delightful, wonderful person who has had me on their work before, and I've never had them on my... No, that's not true. I've never had them on this show before. Andy, dearest friend. Andy, you've made some programming changes, so at the end, we're going to rattle through what you're doing, what's upcoming. You're launching a new project, which just got announced, and I don't want to flub it. So we're going to save plugs, but this is Andy, who I adore.
Thank you for having me. Huge fan of the show. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you.
I'm happy to have you here, Andy. Almost after every episode we recorded last season with Alden, Alden would say, "Hey, Andy is ready. They're chomping at the bit to get on the show," and I'd be like, "Yes, absolutely, it's going to happen." And then just time moved on. So you're here to help launch our return here. Before we dive into this teaser trailer, which is what I'm a minute and 20 seconds of dragon goodness, a little housekeeping up top. Casterly Talk remains as a podcast, but also here on YouTube as well, if you're watching all of our lovely faces. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Because we went a little dormant, understandable, we lost some of our partner status with YouTube, so helping us by subscribing, liking the video, commenting, all that good stuff is very much appreciated. Also on the podcast side, we moved networks. We were kind of an independent network with myself, Morning Drive Media, housed on Anchor, but I have moved the show to the Brad Gilmore Network. A soft launch of the network has already happened. We've been there for a bit. Shouldn't be any interruption or disruption in your service on the podcast side, but let us know. Sometimes those transitions can be a little bit of a hassle. But in the new year, Brad's going to be announcing a full slate of shows, full slate of programming. We're happy to be part of that. I know Brad from the Schmodown world, but he's not only one of the coolest, most good-looking, talented cats, but he's a great man, and happy to be with him on this adventure. So that's where we're at. Alden, we'll dive in here in a second, but for all of you, I want to start with this question. And Nikki, I'll look at you, because I think the last time we actually met in person, the show was still going on, or was around maybe in the I'm so excited that House of Dragon is back. And I want to get into the relationship we all have with the show versus Game of Thrones, and it's going to be different. And I don't think you'll ever recapture the cultural zeitgeist that was the first show. The pressure's off as far as me as a fan. It's never going to reach those levels. But Rachel, it's back, and I don't know any of the names anymore. And I've read the book. Fire Blood's one of perhaps my favorite reading experience. I need a refresher, and that's okay, right? Can you assure me?
Absolutely. Look, you can come at this from any angle, from reading the books, from just watching the show, from having done both but taken a bit of a break and coming back to it. Like, I totally get that. I do have to admit that while it hasn't replaced Lord of the Rings, Fire and Blood is now the book when I'm just like, got an hour to kill, I'm in between whatever novels or whatever, and I will just pick it up and read a few chapters. And I can pick it up at any point and read a few chapters. So there are some things that are still fresh in my mind. And so, yes, I was that person pausing at every frame on the teaser going, do I think I know what that is? Do I think I know what that is? Have a few guesses. None of them are going to be revelatory. Everybody who did the exact same thing pretty much came up with the same ideas. But I'm ready to dive back in. Not that I've ever really fully dove out.
No, it's great. Look at
that phrase.
And Nick, I teed you up for an answer and then just skipped over you like some sort of
I'm used to it. It's fine.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Skipped over like you were next in line for the throne, and I just said nope, not today. Your thoughts of where we're at with the show and it returning? Obviously excited, but it's been a lifetime.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting relationship to have because, similarly, I feel like I didn't really leave because it's one of those ones where, especially as someone who, like, I'm sure as many, listeners, everyone here, like, we've read the literature. We're not exactly hanging on to, oh my God, what is the next story beat? So it's like, we don't have that same sort of antsiness, I feel, that you might have felt going into like a later season of Thrones or something. So it's interesting because it's like there's pure excitement as soon as I watched the trailer. I was like, oh, we're back, let's go. But it also is that same thing where it's like, but I'm not desperate, like I can wait. I'm not gonna freak out, but I will be really happy when it's here.
Yeah, all kind of levels of fandom are welcome around these parts. And for those who might be swinging into Casterly Talk for the first time, we'll discuss predictions, like Rachel said. Easter eggs are fun. I go out and seek a lot of the Easter egg content too, but that's not what we do here. We dive deep into the themes and our feelings and our thoughts on what it means as art. But we like to be excited. And Andy, I got to ask you, how excited are you? And have you looked in the rearview mirror and said, I remember that show?
I'm pretty freaking pumped. I guess with it being my first time here, I should give like my fan accolades. I'm pretty hardcore. I hate saying like I'm a super fan because there are people who like write dissertations on this and like give 4-hour video essays and whatnot. Like I'm not Alt Shift X over here, but I'm a big enough fan that I know who that is. I play the miniatures games. I've reread the books. I'm so excited that it's coming back.
That's great. And I am. I want everyone. I am too. I'm like, I'm almost nervous, Andy. I'm almost nervous. Like I'm going to fail an internet test when I don't know every single dragon right off the bat, even though I do.
It's definitely like a rewatch right now that the trailer drops, and you'll be ready, in 2024 when it's here, kind of thing. But I had a lot of friends who didn't watch it initially, so I would invite them over and be like, oh, just watch the first episode with me. And I know that maybe you didn't love the end of GOT, but check this out, watch the first episode. And then we'd blow through the season together. So I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a rewatch is in my plans right now. Alden, before we get deep into what this trailer had for us, your thoughts on the show? Because when we say it's a lifetime ago, I mean, we covered Willow here, we covered Rings of Power, and it just seems like another era, even though it's been a year.
Yeah, just over a year, I think. So, well, a year ago, we would have been in the back half of Willow. So it was definitely a different world. Some might say a better one. And I feel this weird sort of push and pull between hype and also just letting it ride, which I think is part of also a general fan journey thing. I used to be, from my high school days to post high school, let me check the headlines on this website about who, and I'm still interested, but now I translate that into much more personal, smaller things like Nikki and I texting about who we think is going to play Craig Stark, things like that. Which we now know. And I forget the gentleman's name. I apologize if you're watching Craig Stark.
Tom Taylor.
Oh, Tom Taylor!
Oh,
What a
Team Craig and
pull!
Stark over here, baby.
What a pull! It's like in a heart sticky note on your.
Is it?
On your
I really hope now it's Tom Taylor.
Oh, are you just lying to me? I'm like over here Googling, like, is he hot enough?
That's fantastic. But yeah, so it's like you try to keep it small, try to keep it personal. But then when I think about our time with it, I remember all of our conversations. I remember Andy and I going back and forth in messages. I remember really thinking, which I still think, is that it was one of the best single seasons of the whole HBO Westeros run, if you combine it all. And I loved it. And
Yeah, it's all
this trailer, definitely lit the fire a little bit.
Before we dive into it, but you mentioned something, talk about things have changed in websites you go to, like Watchers on the Wall shuttered their doors. They're not covering. And part of it was, hey, still fans, but the fire for this show is a little different, not lower or it's just a little different than the other show. And it's all, like I said up top, it's always going to be that. We'll never recapture that again. And it's impossible to, for these shows to try for that metric. So the fandom's changed, but that's why we're here. We're to dive in and celebrate a lot of things to get to. Favorite imagery, setting some themes for the season. We'll mention Blood and Cheese with a wink of a nod because, and Andy asked a question off air that I want to make sure any folks coming in here, we try to keep it to the TV show. It's hard to separate knowledge from books or even maps or things is coming. We try to be respectful of that. If we stumble onto something, we apologize if it spoils ahead of time for you, but we try to be respectful of the TV audience first. But the books are in our heart and souls, and this is one of my favorites when I do remember parts of it. So that said, Alden, take it away. Let's get into this teaser trailer here.
Yeah, so we don't have like we're going to go here, and perfect round robin, but there are some things we sort of pre-organized. We'll everybody go around and talk about what your favorite thing was. But right off the top, we're starting with a big tonal thing that's kind of spoken by Otto that I want to get everybody's thoughts on. And Otto Hightower, that cunning bastard, he says, in probably the understatement of the century, errors were made in the hours following Viserys' death, which is like, yeah, I think some errors were made, like the murder of a child. But let's talk about that and how characters might be battling with their humanity, trying to justify things to themselves, trying to sleep at night, light stuff to begin with. So, Andy, first timers, guest rights, as it were.
Guest right.
Please talk to us about starting in arguably the most bitter, season, new chapter beginning since Jon's death, maybe, of the most like, oh God, we're going in with such a gross feeling.
The first thing I want to point out is that Otto's language is totally neutral. It's not I made mistakes. It is mistakes happened. Like such a jerk.
The perfect politician.
Yeah. To your point about like how characters are feeling and where their headspace is at, I really want to zero in on Rhaenyra first because within like a 48-hour period, her father has died. She lost her newborn baby and her son was murdered. Like,
it's heavy.
Has any character in Game of Thrones suffered like that? Like in such a short window? Pretty brutal. I mean, maybe Arya, but like, brutal stuff.
Yeah. I like the idea of a suffering leaderboard in this Westeros world there. Like
everybody in Westeros just needs to get Twitter and then they can all compete for who has it harder. It's definitely an important thing to establish, right, with Rhaenyra, because so much of this has been who's justified in what, who do we empathize with? We'll talk about whether or not I'm still very angry and wrathful about the Greens. I am. Spoiler alert, I really am. And how we can sort of try to tap into the humanities characters. Rachel, has anybody, like protagonist-wise, ever been so justified in what they're about to do as the Black Star, or is that maybe the wrong wording?
Your Honor, that's a question.
No, I mean, no, you're not wrong. Bottom line, what I find the most interesting thing about it is that, what the first season did was really, really delve into the psyches of the two women, Alicent and Rhaenyra. And it was really trying to make a statement about how women view situations like this differently than men. And Alicent has that wonderful line about, to her father, just because I'm not out for the kill doesn't mean I'm weak. There are other avenues we can take to try to fend off a absolutely galactic civil war. And I saw both women trying to juggle that, especially Rhaenyra. And it's why Rhaenys joins her, as she sees that Rhaenyra is the one who's saying, no, we're not going to go sack King's Landing. No, we're not going to, rush into this all bloodthirsty. But then she has this absolute brutal blow of Luke dying. And I think that's, it was the perfect place to end the season. It was the perfect place to stand with her. And I'll never forget the shot where you just see her back and the camera's pushing in, and like Emma Darcy is acting the hell out of it, and you can't even see her face, but you know what is settling in on her, and that is so much rage, so much sorrow. And what can I do about this? I can go blood and fire, and feel incredibly justified in doing so, even though it's going to cost thousands, tens of thousands of lives, which is interesting because it's Alicent who has that line in the teaser. So I really love that the show is leaning into, you have your Otto Hightower who reminds all of us, and Laris, they remind us of characters we've already seen. They remind us of Littlefinger and Varys and various, manipulators. But I really love that the show has really delved into both of their headspaces, and how they oppose, how they're similar, and ultimately how we get to this point where it's going to be complete blood and fire. I mean, this is where the dance really starts.
So well said. I love a good well said moment. You're familiar with those, Ken, and I want to ask you, Ken, as somebody that enjoys the maps and the strategy and the war and these figures, and you're known for your Stannis fandom and sort of what he wrought through his choices and through the conventions that he broke, but also through the rules that he very vigorously upheld and the contradictions there. Talk to me about this Rhaenys line that sort of dovetails off of what Rachel was saying about this vengeance that's going to come, this fire and blood. Rhaenys says there is no war so hateful to the gods as a war between kin. And first of all, Eve Best just murdered that line delivery, and we haven't even gotten to actually see her in the full context of the scene. Talk to me about that and what that means, a world that allows for so much evil. Even they have that line, and it's going to be shattered now.
It's an extra layer of tragedy. We can talk about the Civil War aspect of it. We know Winterfell, the Starks have kind of been going through their own thing, right? At the time when we kind of re-up with them again. I want to tie it also to what Andy pointed out about Otto's neutral language, and Rachel, you echoed, such a politician is that's the other side of it. That's everyone, to your point, Alden, of everyone trying to justify it, everyone, all these horrible things. Some mistakes were made. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And I think along the way, as I always go to a point of to longtime fans, it's I've said it before, but Stannis's lesson is starting in a righteous spot and being consumed by what you feel is so right that you lose yourself, and we're about to see these houses lose themselves on a level they haven't experienced yet, a destructive level. So I think that's an interesting place to start, and I love the theme setting with Otto. And I'm joking. I'm Team Black. I think that's the right spot, the way the season ends, but. Along the way, I had a lot of understanding, empathy, and at times love for the Alicent character of what she was bred to be. And you saw her fighting that and maybe losing herself along the way. And Otto's at the center of that. And you're right, Rachel. He's a politician to the core, but you can't hide behind that forever. It will find you. Blood for blood. Yeah. It will tear you apart.
I mean, a lot of the magic of that first season, of course, was the the double casting of Rhaenyra and Alicent. I think Emily Carey's Alicent in the younger years built up so much goodwill and empathy, and you saw this young woman being broken. And when you find out at the end of the season that the famous trailer line of "Our hearts were never one" is actually at her father and not at Rhaenyra, like we all thought it might be, you start to really understand the different ground that we're on. And I'm going to throw it to you, Nikki, because you know the material, and also just from like a writing perspective, you and I will talk a lot off air about scripts and entertainment and different things. This is sort of different territory where I think a lot of people that are HBO's Game of Thrones show watchers got into it for families versus other families. And probably the closest we got to this broken family stuff was the Baratheon brothers in early Thrones. What do you think splitting one family up and doing a Civil War story does for the presentation? Because it is we're going to see these other families, but they're going to be beholden to a Targaryen camp.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you get it a little bit in Game of Thrones. This concept of the kinslaying, right? And with Tyrion and Tywin and all that. And the books definitely go more into the psyche of what that act was for Tyrion. But it is a really important point of sort of the dramatic stakes of this show in particular, is that they know that it's bad, right? Like they know they should not be killing each other. The gods curse them for killing each other. And it's why I like when you said earlier, like, how did they sleep at night? It's like, gosh, I don't know, because like the guilt they have for doing this is just immense, because it's the most passionate level of petty and not petty revenge, but they know it's wrong. It's almost like Sisyphusian rock and hill of like they can't not fight them, even though they know how it's putting a curse upon it. So it's sort of like, I think the stakes are that much more personal, and it's almost like this idea of everybody knowing they're kind of doomed, like in the end.
It's kind of disgusting, right? Especially like knowing that Viserys was the uniter and the appeaser, and the, I mean, he wasn't necessarily an equal father. I would say one child definitely got more of the affection than maybe some of the other ones did, but he was a person that would be so mortified by what became of everyone he loved.
And bless him, he died thinking he fixed it. Right? Like,
that was a like, great dinner.
Bless him. Yeah, he's like, oh man, look at everybody. This is beautiful. I'm gonna go pop off now. But yeah, no, it's brutal, and it is gross, and it is part of what, again, like one of the lines from the book is a son for a son, and that will, sort of speaks to one thing, but also speaks to the whole thing in general. Like, that's really what it is. You take from me, I take from you. And that's, it's weird. The stakes are so high because there's, the atomic bomb equivalent of dragons flying around, but also it's so petty in places. And it's just like, what is going on? So yeah, no, it's definitely a different presentation, because I think Thrones had that more of an element of like, oh, they're a bad guy, they're a good guy. You could more sort of establish your camps a little more along those lines. Whereas I think House of the Dragon is going to be even more so really good at making you, the characters you like, making you a little queasy over what they're capable of.
Look, man, I was leading the Daemon charge on everything last season, and I am very prepared to be disappointed. Andy, without getting too much into what Daemon will do, in with that disgust, and you as well being so familiar with the material, there's this disgust, there's this wrath, but something that I wrote down here is this deeply sad and intense, miserable, but also gorgeous in its composition imagery with Allison, particularly by the lake. It's like so painterly, but there's such a profound sadness lingering over this entire trailer. It's not hype really at all outside of dragons. It's just more miserable, and we joked off air like there isn't anything that's going to lift us right here. Talk to me about that, about how you feel going into something that we're not even close to getting through the muck of, and where you think that sort of affects sort of the experience of it.
Sure. I think the book does two incredible things really well, and I've been loving how Hot D has adapted it. And one of those things that I think relates to this is that both sides are really justified, and both sides have legitimate grievances, and both sides do horrific things because of those grievances. I think Team Black's are more understandable to a modern sensibility, and Team Green's makes sense to a Westerosi sensibility. And so I think Team Black tends to get a little bit more fan allowances and looking the other way to some nasty stuff. But the show does not shy away from both sides are going to do horrible things. And we see hints of that in this trailer. Like, Alicent dressed like a freaking saint and like grieving. And Helena in like all like this black shroud, like weeping. We're going to see both sides dealing with heavy losses and both sides doing horrendous shit. And as a viewer, like, strap in, because we got like 3 red weddings coming, and like it's
go through the whole color wheel here.
it's not going to be fun to watch. I mean, it's going to be incredible TV. I'm sure the water cooler Monday morning is going to be nuts afterwards. But like, I don't know, take care of yourself. Like, have like a good playlist ready to go, or something to cheer you up afterwards, because we have some rough stuff coming. And it's as a viewer, talking about those subjects is going to be really compelling if people, handle them with empathy and can have good discussions and not just scream and shout, no, Team Green is bad, no, Team Black is bad. Like,
they should just DM you. They should DM you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, just DM me. Just
providing
have those discussions. Because George's point is that both sides are, like, anytime violence breaks out, both sides are wrong. Like, that is George's point with this book, and I think the show is painting that. Whether or not the fandom fully gets it is another thing, but violence is never the right answer, and George is pretty upfront about that.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because I actually wanted to talk about that violence in both story terms, in spectacle terms, filmmaking terms. Rachel, you're no stranger to a good fantasy battle, to some fantasy violence from Pelennor Fields, a much nicer world, all the way to the Wall and all the locations here. How do you feel about sort of the, it's the second season, but it's also a very different television world. You work in TV, you work in the arts, you know about this stuff, how editing works on the most intimate professional level. This looks like it's early, stages for this show. It's only season 2. It's only season 2 teaser, but because of where we are in our world, we get late stage GOT action. There are shots in this that I'm like, oh my God, like that was a season 8 thing prior, and now it's a season 2 thing. How does that feel, especially as a fan of the source material? I mean, they've got like Star Trek motion picture shots of Vagar just so we can appreciate the glory.
Nicely done. I mean, early Game of Thrones walked, so late Game of Thrones and now House of Dragon could run, and they have the capability to do justice to set pieces. And, if the trajectory of what happens during the dance, that there are major set pieces, major in plot, but then major in scale. And quite frankly, I said from the get, when they announced that they were going to do this show, and we were guessing which part of Fire and Blood they were going to adapt, I always figured it would be the dance, because no other story gets as much dragon action as this, because being a civil war, that means you have dragons on both sides, which means you have dragon on dragon. So it's not just field of fire. It's not just one dragon wiping out everything. Now they got to worry about each other. And we got a tiny bit of that with, the ice dragon and the final season of Game of Thrones, but they're all in on that. I have no doubt every exec was like, how many of those can we do? Like, the fans are just going to, eat it all up. So I'm excited to see that, but I'm also hoping that, and I believe that they will, that everything that leads up to it, because what we're talking about right now is at the end of last season, we're mostly like, no, Rhaenyra is in the right. She is justified for whatever she does next. But wait till see what she does next. And then maybe a few more people lean green, and then green will react, and then black will react. And we will just go down a rabbit hole that is all about personal motivation, grasping for power, personal vengeance, that then affects this on a global scale. And so we'll see how it affects the poor folk, all the different houses. I think one of the things I'm excited about this season, and I'm not going to say that it was a problem of season one, but one of the things about it that was very obvious was it took place almost entirely in King's Landing. We had a handful of things here and there, but generally speaking, we were in, it felt like a much more intimate thing. Whereas Game of Thrones, you're flying all over Westeros, all over Essos, all the way to the far east. Like, there's so much, and it felt so much bigger and widespread, and more pieces were a part of the puzzle. And I think we'll get more of that this season, because we're going to start seeing where the houses lend their support to. And I'm really excited to see more of the Riverlands. I want Blackwoods and Brackens, and, to get more of a feel of how this very intimate, personal, family civil war then spreads out and affects all these other pieces.
Absolutely. I recommend everybody, if what Rachel just said got you hyped, go back, because I did this the other day. Go back and watch when Daemon is overstepping and already making his battle plan. That's like a teaser trailer in and of itself. Like, hey, it's Matt Smith. I love that man. He's amazing. But when he's like, we'll do this, that, and the other thing, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, green heads on spikes. You're like, oh my goodness. Wow. They should make a TV show out of that. Oh, wait. Now, but with that expansion, I know one thing you want to touch on, Ken, so I'll throw it to you here, is that I wouldn't say that you were disappointed. I don't think you'd say that either, but it was a dour season. There wasn't a Tyrion. There wasn't a Baelish Varys Barbs. You're looking for a little bit more of that. How do you feel?
Yeah. I'm looking for the show to do what it's going to do with the big themes, and what something Rachel said before I even dive into the humor of it. But that's right where I was jumping in is. I love what you said, Rachel, about, hey, that season one ends, and yeah, it's pretty hard to argue against Rhaenyra in that moment. And Andy's right; it's going to be a bunch of yelling of green and black for 8 episodes, and we only have 8 episodes this season. But I'm looking forward to this season. What you said, Rachel, of what she going to do, because all these stories we love, the lessons and themes that are here for us, are about your next step. It isn't destiny and fate that just drives you forward. It's what you do with the next step. And so is something that Rhaenyra does. Does that not turn you against her, but she goes that way? Then you look at Allison's response to that, and then you start building on this stuff. This is that nuance that will be there. And Andy, you're right. I hope there's a nuanced discussion online about this. I don't know if I have hope for that, but maybe you're there. So there's that at play. But that said, along the way, and it's a bit of maybe a gear shift here, but go back to where you want on what I just said. But yeah, it was. I think Ryan Condal has admitted as much. Humor was lacking in season one in the Game of Thrones sense, and we're. No, I don't want the same show, but I think it was part of the element that made the show so popular early on was not just humor in terms of jokes, but a spark, a little bit of a personality that was above, we're going to murder everybody. Like, the dour is a great word to look at it. It was serious in a way I'd want it, because it's serious subject matter. Again, it wasn't like a sitcom, but there was a spark to a lot of the characters early on that pulled you in. Tyrion, Hound and Arya later on becomes the best buddy cop comedy we've ever seen, all that kind of stuff. And Condal's mentioned that. And I just wonder that with Miguel Sapochnik, an absolute genius level director in terms of this big stuff, he always comes across as a very intense young man. And his episodes were always some of the biggest, boldest, and intense episodes, and he handled that stuff. So I wonder if he brought some of that to the show, and now his separation for the various public reasons and private reasons. Now maybe someone like Condal's like, but also we're gonna laugh more, and I just don't know that. I wouldn't expect 1 minute 20-second teaser trailer to show me jokes. I don't want jokes. You know what I mean? And so I'm looking forward to both these things I've talked about. The layers of exploring these characters' choices, and I want to laugh a little bit more.
Yeah, that comedy in season 1 of Hot D. I mean, first of all, calling it Hot D, as Andy reminded me to do, is the comedy in a lot of ways. But yeah, it was more so lines that they made you chuckle, but you were also like, that's not a good person. Like
Damon's the funniest person, and that's saying something.
Like I would rather feed my sons to the dragons than that. Like it's just so awful.
Yeah.
But
the show could use a jester.
Yeah.
Mushroom,
Perhaps
anybody?
Mushroom debuting now would actually be hilarious, just to see how the internet reacts. So in terms of last big thing, and then I think we'll spend the remaining time going around favorite moments. Who do we miss the most? Who are we excited to meet the most? And then I think we should all sit and watch the trailer and react like we've never seen it before, so I can put it on our TikTok. I think so. There are a lot of things that we know are going to happen, and this is where we'll do a lot of dancing around our knowledge. A lot of things we know are coming. For example, if you're just a show watcher, you might remember Rhaenyra sending her sons 2 places. One to the grave, actually. The other to Winterfell, a place that we all know and love, which, as Rachel pointed out off air, you can glimpse that path. You can glimpse the north that is there. But I think they're going to save that big sweeping shot where the theme comes in. I'm not sure if they're going to use that in promo. I honestly hope they save it. Is there something that wasn't in this that you're really excited about? We'll start with Andy.
Oh, me. I am excited for. Let's do this strategically. The Blacks, we know, have a lot of unclaimed dragons because they're at Dragonstone, and they have a whole lot of eggs. Yeah. At the end of season 1, we see Daemon going and singing this song. The Blacks just have a abundance of dragons and no riders. And so if you're about to go into a dragon war where the other side has less dragons but they're way bigger, you want more dragons to make up for the fact that they have some huge ones. So seeing what the Blacks are going to do about that, and some potential characters who may or may not pop up because of that. Another really interesting thing with this show is the whole point of the book is that you don't know history. Like, there are conflicting accounts and versions and biases at play within the book. And so seeing how the show pays homage to that and maybe changes some things and says, well, the book said this, but those 2 people disagreed, and here's actually the third thing that happened. Seeing how they handle this, because Laenor is out there,
right?
Is going to be really compelling. So what do you do with Sea Smoke? What do you do with these other dragons? Yeah. Who's going to come up because of that? I'm pumped about all of that.
And those were things that you and I talked about, in our conversations during season 1. Like, Laenor was a huge thing of, oh my God, what a great swing. What an intelligent way to come down on HBO's canon. Things like, did Rhaenyra and Daemon, do the do and consummate when she was a girl? Did they not? The show comes down on their version of that. But even then, gossip takes over and plays into the book version. So there's a lot of opportunities going forward to take ambiguities and make really powerful scenes.
Yeah, and to Rachel's point about like the North and being excited about that, all we have is gossip from what happens there. And so
Yeah.
like when like I can't spoil anything about that because we legitimately don't know. There's just gossip. And so I cannot wait to see what the show does with that. There's so much great fan fiction out there if you want to read it about what happens at the North in this next season of Hot D. And I'm pumped to see what the show does with it because we don't know. We just have gossip in the book.
Rachel, do you gossip about the North? Or are you more excited about that?
Always, of course. Been waiting to see Kragan for a long time.
Can't wait.
You should see.
I will say,
Nikki's calendar is red X's of like
counting down. I will say one thing that was in the trailer that I wasn't expecting, but I was actually very glad to see, and hope it's a sign of bringing the character in more. It was Bela on Dragonback. I assume it's Moondancer, but we'll see. But and also even Rhaenyra on Cyrax. Like, based on what we know in the books, we know certain dragons were involved in various battles and fights with each other, but I think they might expand and involve some more than is in the books, to which I'm very excited to see. And then just in terms, I assume the battle at Rook's Rest is going to be the culmination of the season. It sort of seems likely. But prior to that, there are some smaller battles and whatnot. And I really, like I said a little earlier, I want to see the Riverlands. I want to see a little bit more of that area. Like I said, Blackwoods, Brackens, what was going on with the Tullys at the time. In Harrenhal and whatnot. I'm looking forward to seeing some more houses come into the picture and get a little bit of a spotlight. I mean, there's some really fun characters that come out of that get a little moments and pieces here and there in the book, but because the show is what it is, they can really kind of latch on to some of them and expand them, is what I'm sort of hoping for.
Absolutely.
We need the lads.
The lads. Well, I was about to say, are those the ones that are named after Sesame Street characters?
He's one of them, or one of them. Is a Muppet.
Yeah.
all of them. There are 4 Tullys, and they're all Muppets. I love it.
George having to deal with what used to be funny
Grover.
references and will now be HBO characters is very funny. But to your point, Rachel, about there is probably going to be this battle, but along the way there will probably be these other ones. It's we have to mention in season 1, one of the most celebrated sequences was one of those things that was a tiny little mention, the Stepstones. Oh, they did some stuff in the Stepstones, and they turned it into cinema, baby. That solo run against the crab feeder is sensational. And how many of those 2 line things will Condal say, yeah, that's going to be an episode because we can. Ken, I know that you've talked a little bit about the beginning about it's been a long 2023, and maybe your recall for a certain line that you loved isn't as sharp as it was when we were covering season 1. But is there something that you're like, yeah, I need more of that, even if it's a season 1 thing that you just want to return?
I want to see when Kristen Cole starts doing good things. If you're going to root for him, I just want to see if you'll have a change of heart. I don't know.
Kristen Cole. That literally, that Fabian Frankel did a phenomenal job when his one shot in this trailer made me viscerally angry.
Yeah. And it looks like what he may have replaced. Otto as the king. He's got some power. He's got a hand of the king and all this stuff. Yeah, no, I'm interested in that. Rachel,
your necklace.
Yeah. Rachel's saying something that is getting me excited about what could come, which is. I agree. Season 1, I think, is so well crafted. It's so well done. Dour or not, for my taste, it's still spectacular. But I do feel as though I'm not connected fully with the land. And so if we're going to start going to these other spots, which we have the ability to, we know there's characters to play with out there, but even places that we wouldn't expect. I don't need a smash cut to my favorite place, the Wall, where a bunch of men in black are going, what? We don't care. I don't need that, but I would love that. It was for the most part, even though it affected the land, and even though it is affecting land, and even though we did go to other spots, Rachel's right. It was a house drama around King's Landing, and I feel as a fan, it's not just name recognition, it's not just house recognition, but what's going on with that, because it does all filter down to the small folk, right? That's what Jorah keeps telling us. They don't care who's on the throne. They want a long summer. And it's about them, and we know it's going to affect them. And so, can we start feeling it through the other houses? We're not going to go spend time with all the small folk, but seeing the road to Winterfell, that gets me excited. Seeing some Riverland stuff, that gets me excited, because now we're going to really connect with the Seven Kingdoms. And I'm not saying it was missed or I needed it in season 1, but I'm excited to maybe get to that more in season 2.
Absolutely, I think that's a very good point, especially, whether you agree with them or not. There were a few criticisms of season 1 that we've touched on here. One being that a lot of, I would say, Rhaenys dragon destruction detractors on the internet were very much like, why is she just stomping all over small folk to make her, to make her stand? And whether you agree with that or not, I like that episode a lot. I like the choice. This will add some pathos and some weight when you understand them some more. Another thing in that same episode, people were rightfully celebrating how emo the Aegon Black Parade March was, but there were a lot of people that were like, he has the coolest dragon in the literature. Why is his dragon only featured in one wide shot this season will rectify that too. Now we're starting to get to the point where we're going to need to wrap up. So let's start to go around a little bit. We'll go favorite moment, who you're most excited to see again or meet for the first time. We'll start with Nikki and then go this way on my screen.
Let's see. Favorite moment from the teaser. Just sort of, I guess, maybe looping back to one of the sort of earlier in the conversation, talking about Rhaenyra, that first kind of big shot of her looking at Storm's End. And just a mess. Right. I didn't actually expect that. I don't remember if that was in the pages, but the idea of her like flying out there and like looking for her son possibly, that never really crossed my mind. So seeing that as a shot, I was like, oh wow, that's a really interesting thing to do with her. And then there's also, I think, going to talk about dragons, I think that's sea smoke on the beach.
I wasn't sure, because that's just talking shot, my favorite shot, and it seems like it's Cyrax in sea smoke, but I don't know.
It looks really similar to
sea smoke or Dreamfire would be my guess.
Yeah,
Dreamfire's good guess.
It looks similar to how he did in the Stepstone, so we'll see, maybe. And then there's one that I don't even know how to talk about because it'd be getting too much, but it involves a certain Kingsguard swinging a sword. So something happens when a Kingsguard swinging a sword, and then I guess who I'm most excited to see also goes into what I didn't see in the trailer, and that is, where is my homie Sir Harold Westerling, who, according to the books, had died long ago, but is still active.
You have Graham McTavish.
He is still active here.
And he got to walk away.
I wonder if he is part of the story, if they just leave him out.
Did anyone get Lord Beesbury's body out of there? That's right. But really, like, that is a great point, because that was one thing where it was like, here's a big old supporting character that we know is loyal to his girl. He's loyal to the girl he helped bring up.
I want to see where he's at, and if he's not done, fighting for the the line that he believes was proper.
Absolutely. Rachel, how about you?
Hard to pick a favorite. Like I said, the shot of the two dragons on the beach just, upped the excitement level quite a bit. Seeing Bela also was a highlight for me. But I think a highlight that also ties into like what happens next is seeing Daemon grab the helmet in full armor. Like, I just want to see him in Caraxes in action. And, as sort of the commander of the Blacks and whatnot, knowing what I've read, but also just how charismatic Matt Smith is, and the ambiguity of that character, I think is one of the best gray area love him sometimes, hate his guts sometimes. Like, I get it. I'm not sure. Did he do the like? I think there's so much there to play with, and I'm really excited to to sort of see that come to life in a not such piece. Like, he was like in an episode and then he was banished, and then he's in an episode and he doesn't think like.
And he was banished again.
A little, yeah, exactly.
And he showed up to the wedding anyway, because why not?
Why not?
Oh, so funny. I'm glad you mentioned Caraxes. I'm surprised that I went 15 minutes and 30 seconds without mentioning Caraxes, because I love him so much, and he has, or he, she, they, I'm not sure. Can't remember. Caraxes has Kit Fisto energy. Caraxes loves their job. Caraxes is always smiling. And like, it's like Caraxes has like, I don't have a political allegiance. I love my master. I love what I do. Andy, you love what you do.
Yeah,
tell me about favorite moments, people you missed, people you're excited to see.
Favorite moment in the trailer is Daemon walking by and picking up his helmet. I mean, the Rogue Prince, armored for battle. Yeah. He is here to be unleashed. This is really him, like, off the chain in a way that we haven't seen before, and the fact that he was holding back in season 1 is just absurd to what we're going to get to witness now. So yeah, I can't wait to see all of that. Characters I'm looking forward to seeing, even if Laenor is not in this at all in the way that I think he might be, whether he's a different character or something like that. I would like to see what he's up to, just having a good time, drinking a Mai Tai on the beach. Just completely, just having pirate adventures with his boyfriend, just like, we're off in Essos, like we're not involved in that dance situation. Yeah. I would love to see that. And Erica Cargill, I would love to see them again. This idea of these two brothers, Nick mentioned it, these two brothers on different sides of the war. They're both in the Kingsguard. Mm-hmm. Like, they love each other, but like they have to respect that they've chosen different sides. And it's so heartbreaking. It's so dramatic. It's so Shakespearean. And I'm excited to see, more of these really minor characters but like they have such a deep, like, emotional connection to each other. I can't wait for the drama of it.
Yeah, in the Lindsay Lohan iteration of The Parent Trap, there's a scene where little Lindsay Lohan fences herself. And let's just say I've had a tweet in my drafts for quite a long time that will become very relevant super soon. Ken, I know that they were not dropping jokes and zingers, but I know you still love this teaser, so I don't want anyone to think that you weren't super hyped. We're just tired.
I just no. I'm very hyped. There's two shots they love, and Nikki mentioned kind of around the first one here, and it's there's a thought that maybe this picks up right after, right? There's I can't remember if I'm imagining that or seeing that and or saw that a video of Rhaenyra's. We might pick up there, and even if we don't, regardless, we're seeing her. The shot of her staring at Storm's End. I've got it up here. It's about the 3-second mark. That's really powerful because, again, it goes to the choices that what is next, and her going there. Something you said, Nikki, of I don't mean to bring up world stuff here, but like real world stuff. Like I had a girl I know growing up. She died on the beach in my hometown. It was a freak, tragic accident, and I remember her mother saying, "I had to go there. I had to go to where she died to accept it." To see what she felt and smelled and breathed in her final moments, to move forward from it. And I had to take it in. And there's something about Rhaenyra staring. And yes, it could be a literal, I got to look for him, a literal, I want to go burn it all down. But just this is where I'm at and I've got to move forward. And you take that and about the 36-second mark, there is Alicent up at what we think is the Riverland standing out there. And they're almost on opposite sides. And this series, as it expands and gets wonderfully unruly in that Game of Thrones way we love and all these houses, new places that I do want to see, I do want this to remain their series, that it is their story until it isn't their story. And that's just a reminder, these two almost side by side looking out and wondering who they are, where they are, what world put them here and what are they going to do about it going forward is some of the big thematic stuff that I love so much with these two characters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll just, my only thing that I would add that was part of my favorite shot, I already mentioned it, that gorgeous, felt like theater, felt like a Renaissance painting of Olivia Cooke as Allison by the lake, just the sadness that it evokes. And Allison, a lot of the times when you cut through the noise, and there's about to be so much more noise, when you cut through, you can hear her speaking sense and realizing, trying to get off the exit, and it happens during the Green Council. It happens when she's trying to make sense of things with her father and is realizing they're not on the same page. It happens when she has Otto bring the page from their childhood to Dragonstone, and it's almost like, will she have another opportunity like that? Has she realized that they were all gone? Is she resigned to what's going on? And they've done so much with her character to add layers, and I'm just so excited for it. I think that she's completely fascinating in what she's done that you disagree with, but that you completely understand that she was completely shattered and then remade by this world, by the patriarchy, by everything that happened. And to everyone from Olivia Cooke and Emma Darcy and Miguel Sapochnik to the fans on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere that said this would all have been fine if they were allowed to just be girlfriends. Yeah. And that tragedy, like, meme aside, that tragedy is fucking there. It really is. And it's so devastating. And I don't know how they maybe could get us the conversation between them, but whenever that happens in this season, is going to be riveting.
When you're not allowed to be yourself, the question of who you then become is what dangles over a lot of it. And I think that's part of their relationship, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
If I may, what Nikki was talking about earlier about, the line about, kinslaying is the worst thing viewed by the gods. Everyone here is damned. Like we know that this is going to end badly for everyone, and the characters slowly coming to realize that, and then having to accept like this doesn't end well for anyone. No one's hands are going to be cleaned, and what do we do now is going to be really interesting this season as the war escalates.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so on that very positive and cheerful note, I will say we were all going to be talking about this a lot because this wasn't even trailer number 1. We all love how they released teaser, trailer 1, trailer 2. So there's going to be a lot going on in the build-up. We're talking about plans. We're talking about things that we're going to work out. I think Ken should do an ESPN-style Dragons lineup, like player analysis or something about who is unclaimed, who is yet to be hatched. Rachel, you have to go. Rachel, if you want to just let everyone know where they can find you.
I'm no longer on Twitter X. Well, I think maybe it's there, but I have not signed on. I'm technically on Threads, so you can see my latest rant about the Squid Game challenge if you really want to know what I've been watching. But hopefully you will see me back here in Casterly Talk as we prepare over the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Rachel.
Bye.
Bye.
Andy, please tell us what you have going on. Truly, legitimately one of the most intelligent, I'm sorry if you don't like getting compliments, one of the most intelligent, insightful people I know. What are you up to? Tell us about the new show and where we can find it.
You can go on. You can keep saying these things about me. All of my socials are at a One Hat Town. So if you want to follow me on X or Tumblr or Instagram, you can find me there. I have a new show coming out called Genders, Queers, and Buccaneers. It's a Black Sails deep dive. Black Sails is my favorite show of all time. I'm really excited to talk about the queer themes in it and the political themes in it. My co-host for that, Ronnie Palmieri, is just incredible. So it's going to be a good hoot of a time. So go check that out. First episode should be dropping very soon.
That's great. Love that.
Nikki, buddy, where can we find you?
Me. You can find me at the old Imperial Senate podcast, which has been on its long hiatus by personal choice and by strike choice, but that'll probably start coming back soon. And I'm going to launch a new little show on there called the Yub Nub Club. That should be a fun little adventure. So you can check that out at Incentive Pod on Twitter. You can check out the One and Done Film Club. That is a passion project between myself, Alden, and our friend Reed. Film commentary, franchise film commentary. It's a whole thing, and go check it out. It's fun. Then you can, what else? Find a rewatch Between Worlds on Alden's channel, Octo Radio. That is a Star Wars Rebels watch through and a great time. And then what else? That might be it, actually. Woo.
I think that's everything.
Yeah, hopefully back on here every now and again too.
Absolutely. Ken, you'll close. You can find me at that Alden Diaz, ThatAldenDiaz, as well as on Anytime with this man. I'm Alden. My name is second in the show. Ken.
We talked. Ken. It was for momentum reasons. Not that I think I'm number one on the call sheet. It's momentum.
It was intense. He brought in Downey's agent. It was
a
whole thing.
Easiest thing to do for all of you out there listening who may have just discovered the show, go to my website, kennapzok.com. A lot of things out there. I got a music album coming mid-December, comedy specials, all that stuff. But most importantly, subscribe to Casterly Talk, whether you're listening on the podcast side, whether you're on YouTube, as we are back in the Dragon saddle again, Dragon drafts, and a lot more coming your way. So that is it for now. Thank you all for listening. That's our first look. Many more to come on House of the Dragon Season 2. Bye.